Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Conversations Live, where we bring you the best in music, books, entertainment, and current events. When the movers and shakers of the world have something to say to you, they say it to us. Now, here is your host, Cyrus Webb.
And good evening, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Conversations Live, where we connect you with the artists and authors you love who bring you the music and books you can't get enough of. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. I want to first thank those joining us here on the radio dial at 92.3 FM. We also welcome our good friends joining us online worldwide through blogtalkradio.com, whether you listen to us through our switchboard, our live chat, or even joining us through our podcast. We're glad to have all of you with us. We have a great hour coming up for you this evening, a full hour of guests that I think you'll definitely be able to benefit from. We're going to kick things off by speaking to author Gael Meyer. She's the author of the book, The Nuts and Sprouts of Healthy Eating, but she's also an individual who's made a conscious decision in her own life to make a change, and now she's sharing that change with others. We're going to talk to Gael about that decision, what was the turning point for her, and what all of us can do to be able to make the changes in our own lives that we'd like to see. At 25 minutes past the hour, we have our resident chef, Bruce Tretter. He'll be joining us from Massachusetts to give us our quick and easy cooking tip of the day. Then at 30 minutes past the hour, I'm going to be speaking with Jody Ambrose. She is the author of books not only about love and relationship, but she's really been on a mission to help people get the most satisfaction out of their relationships that they can. We're going to talk about what led her down this path and also how you can begin to be able to feel good about yourself and also your own relationships as well. Again, it's going to be a great hour today. Glad you all could join us for the show. As I said, we have Gael Meyer starting off the show for us today. Gael, welcome to Conversations Live.
Oh, thank you, Cyrus.
Well, congratulations, first of all, on the book. I know you have another one that'll be coming out, I think, later on this year, but the one that I got a chance to read is The Nuts and Sprouts of Healthy Eating, Simple Steps to Eating Healthy and Losing Weight for Good. This is something that you know a lot about because you're an individual who has lost over 80 pounds and you've been able to keep it off, and now you're helping other people to do the same thing, Gael. I want to go back to the decision. You talk about in the book that there were some things growing up that may have contributed to, for one thing, your being overweight. But when did you make the decision, and what was the turning point for you that told you that you wanted to make a change in your life?
Well, I think the very first thing was probably when I was a teenager because I was kind of chubby, and then I got to the age where I wanted to date. Mm-hmm. So I started doing different diets, which I don't recommend people to do. But as I got older and I went through college, then I met some nutritionalists. I don't even think I have that in my book, but I met some nutritionalists, and I actually almost, after I finished the 2-year college, I almost went to college for that. But then I met a musician. You know how you are when you're young. So I went traveling around, and a few years later, I met some other people that turned me into vegetarians. You know, that's the way they were eating, and I thought, wow, that's just really nice. So I stopped eating meat, stopped smoking cigarettes, stopped drinking. I must have been horrible to live with that week, I'm sure, but that kind of really changed the way I was doing things. I did eat chicken and fish once in a while, but I pretty much didn't eat red meat anymore since I was 21.
Yeah.
And that just, in the beginning, I felt, every 3 hours I was hungry because I was eating rice and veggies and things like that, and I thought for sure I was going to gain all this weight. But I didn't. The weight just kept coming off because I wasn't eating any processed foods. My bread was way down. I wasn't doing that much dairy, although I did do cheese. And just by eating more often, and I didn't even relate this until years later, but by eating more often and regularly, it actually helps you to lose weight faster.
Right.
That's kind of how I made the change, first of all.
Yeah.
And then when when I was about 45 years old. That's a big jump now. But at that point, I had a son. I raised him on my own his whole life. And when he was about 6 years old, I was like 40, I think I was 45 or 46 or whatever. Then I was taking a self-defense class. And I was in great shape, by the way. I was running and hiking and rock climbing and doing all the things I love to do outside, which I've done through most of my whole life. And I was still a vegetarian, so I was doing really well, and I was healthy. And the very last day of the class, I had an accident there. I was throwing this 250-pound man over my shoulder, and he landed on my leg, fracturing my tibia in 3 places.
Mm.
So you can imagine my whole life just changed in an instant. It
Right.
truly did. Everything I loved in life to do was gone from my life. I was home for 6 months. I was on crutches for 2 years. I could never walk right again, and I couldn't stand for very long. So, I really had a big pity party for a few months, but then, I realized I had to go back to work. So I went back to work and worked as hard as I could so at least I could, make money enough to support my son and myself. And over the next 13 years, I had gained 80 pounds because I couldn't exercise anymore. And I found
Right.
that was really important in my life. And I got sucked into eating all of these health foods, they call health foods, processed health foods, healthy this, healthy that, when in essence they really were not very healthy at all, and it just kind of packed on bad carbs. So not only, I still didn't eat meat or anything, but I did gain the weight, and I wasn't exercising. So my son went off to college. I was miserable, and then it wasn't really about the weight anymore. I started feeling sick inside. My gallbladder was acting up, and they were thinking about taking it out. I ended up getting fibromyalgia. I had acid reflux. You name it, my body was just falling apart. I had headaches every day. Every time I went to bed at night, I'd wake up more tired than I went to sleep at. I was up, every 2 hours I was up all night long.
Right.
So I was really, really scared for the first time in my life. And then, luckily for me, now, during that time, I went on every diet I could possibly think of. I just want to stress this to people to show them how important it is not to go on a diet. I tried low protein, high protein, carbohydrates, no carbohydrates, fat-free, all these different things. I tried starvation. I tried everything.
Right.
I'd lose some weight, and I'd gain it all right back. And the reason, and people hear this all the time, but the reason that happens is because diets don't work, because they end. So the important thing to do is not to ever go on a diet, but to change your diet and change it forever and eat more food than you've ever eaten in your life. I lost the 80 pounds in 8 months, and that was 5 years ago, and I've kept it off. And I did it all without dieting and with eating more food than I've ever eaten in my life. So actually, after I started feeling this horrible thing with my health, this health and wellness center opened up in the town I work in. So, I was very depressed. I went in and I told them my story, and I asked if they could help me, and they said yes. So now I became a raw vegan. This is not for everyone, but it worked for me. So I went in, and that's when I lost all the weight in 8 months. And I'm still a raw vegan, and that inspired me. I've been a real estate agent for 25 years, but this inspired me and made me remember when I was 21 how I wanted to go into nutrition. And a bell went off, and I wrote this book to try to help other people. Yeah. And now I speak, and I'm a life coach, and I speak all over the place about how this is. And I speak to people not just about being a raw vegan or a vegan, but about all the different eating styles and how they can improve them at least and maybe make some changes to make yourself healthier.
Exactly. For those that are just coming in, either on the radio dial or online, you're listening to Conversations Live. I'm speaking with Gael D. Meyer. She's the author of the book, The Nuts and Sprouts of Healthy Eating, Simple Steps to Eating Healthy and Losing Weight for Good. She was just sharing her story. I was asking her exactly how this journey came about, what was the decision-making process like for her, and she was going through some of her story, which is shared in part in the book, The Nuts and Sprouts of Healthy Eating. But I think what is great about what you have said here, Gael, especially for those who may have been coming in a little late, is that this is more than just a diet. This really is a lifestyle change. And when I was reading the book, I thought about, you've even kind of had the foresight of the questions that people would put to you about, well, what about this? I love my butter. I love my cheese. What do I do in this situation? And you attack all of that, and it almost seems like you're holding their hand, walking them through. Is that what this has been like for you, that you are really just a guide to help people, not beating them over the head, but saying, look, you can do this, almost like the little cheerleader. You can do this, I did it, and we can go through this together. Is that how you feel about it?
Yes, that's so nicely so nicely put, Cyrus. It really was. when I was writing this book, I thought, what did I want to know when I went through this? What are all the questions I had when I went through this? And I also realized that if someone's going to make a big, huge life change, then there has to be something that's going to motivate them. And everyone's motivation is different. Mine was my son. I thought I wasn't going to be around to see him grow up. Yeah. That was my big motivation. So everyone is different, I find. So I did put all these questions in there and some thoughtful things like, what makes you want to make a change? That's in my book as well. I think something that I really want to impress people, too, is I did this at the age of 55, and I have to tell you, that whole 13 years before that, I thought my life was over. I didn't think I would ever get healthy again. I truly didn't. And I was a very vibrant, outdoor person my whole life. And I just stopped caring about things. I thought, not only am I a woman, I'm 55 years old, I'm never going to be able to lose this weight. Not only did I lose the weight, but I became more healthy than I was before. I had my blood work done prior to and after, and it came back like a 20-year-old. I could never give blood my whole life because I was anemic. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't eat meat or dairy or anything anymore, and now I am no longer anemic. All of my aches and pains have went away. My gallbladder is fine. I can run and do everything I used to do. So I'm trying to show people that it doesn't matter how old you are. Just by what you eat and how you take care of yourself is all that really matters. You can do whatever you want no matter how old you are. I mean, I started another career in writing at the age of 60. Yeah. So anybody can do this.
And that is another great point in this, Gail. As you said, you've had success in real estate for over 20 years, but this is really another life that people are getting to know you for, as far as not only the writing of the book, but as you mentioned, being a life coach and helping people through this process. You also talk about in the book the nuts and sprouts of healthy eating, Gail. Really how you can start this process little by little. A lot of times, I think this is what stops people. They think, I just have to cold turkey, stop doing everything. But you in the book lay out how you can gradually start making changes, like the organic sea salt, little things like that, and until you are where you need to be. Can you kind of talk to our listeners why that's so important? Why it's important not to try to just stop altogether, but why it's important to kind of incorporate it into what you're doing already to make those changes?
Absolutely. Now, my case was different. I did go cold turkey because I really felt I was going to end up in the hospital soon. But that's my personality, and I'm that kind of a personality. Most people are not, and I've helped many people to go through this just by little bit and little bit. So what you do is, depending on how you eat, like when I coach people, I tell them, okay, tell me everything that's in your refrigerator and your cupboards, and what's a day like for you? What do you eat in a day? And don't leave anything out. If you're eating a whole pie, tell me you're eating a whole pile. I'm not going to tell anyone. So I try to get an idea of what their lifestyle is like. And then I can why don't you try taking a few of these things out and put this in it instead, like sugar. I mean, get rid of sugar. I mean, there's so many alternatives that are so much healthier. And the sea salt, a lot of people don't realize that sea salt won't retain water like regular salt does. So, and then it's full of minerals, so it's kind of a win-win situation, and it tastes better. So little things, and I tell people to try to add like 1 or 2 new things every week to it, and every single week keep with all of that stuff, and sooner or later, it's all going to add up. And I get into depth depending on what their interests are. If it's a whole family, I help the whole family. Kids are the easiest; they really are. I mean, even like milk. Like I make my own almond milk, and that's much healthier for children. Plus, it's full of protein. It doesn't have any kind of all that stuff that they put in, hormones and steroids and all that other kind of stuff that they put in the milk these days. So it's much healthier things to start out the children with even, and to have in the cupboards healthy food for them, and have fresh fruit and fresh vegetables. You'll be surprised how many kids will just pick up that stuff and start eating it.
Exactly.
So starting a little at a time. And if you mess up one day, so what? Just start the next day.
Right.
You're not going to change anything.
Yeah, and you also mentioned that in the book, because we do have the habit of beating ourselves up, and you discuss that in the book. Just go ahead and start back. There was another thing that we've heard time and time again. Gail, you mentioned it several times throughout the book, and that is the importance of water in our diet and also to our health. Talk to our listeners about what you have found about, in your own life, and why this is so important, you feel like, as we are trying to be our best self and put our best health forward.
Water is probably the most important thing you can do, and make sure that it's a good filtered water. I distill my own water. People probably don't even know what that is, but it's so easy. It's a container. I fill up the thing with water, and I plug it in, and leave it for the day, and it comes back distilled. That's the easiest explanation. But if you're going to buy water, try to at least get like a water filter on your kitchen sink, and fill up some glass jars and stick them in the refrigerator. But water is like so important. First of all, the brain to function right. I mean, the brain needs tons of water every day. So that's like a huge thing for mental clarity even. But 6 to 8 glasses of water a day seems like a lot to people, and it might for people who don't even drink water.
Right.
But if you do that, like what I do first thing in the morning is I have a glass of water. And every time before I eat, I have another glass of water. And pretty soon you're up around your 6 to 8 glasses. And then try to drink, not to eat anything until 20 minutes after you have any kind of liquids, including water. But most of your hunger comes from a falsification that your brain does to you. It makes you think you're hungry, when in actuality you're dehydrated. And I'm not talking that dehydration like, oh my God, I can't breathe, I'm so thirsty.
Right.
You don't realize half the time you're actually dehydrated. You're not hungry at all. So if you actually are drinking this much water, it's going to fill you up. Another really important thing to do is, no matter how you eat, is not to stuff yourself, but to eat 3 meals a day, and then to take 2 or 3 snacks a day. So you're eating something every 3 or 4 hours. Then you're never going to be hungry. It's just amazing. I've never eaten so much food in my entire life. I really haven't.
Right. Right, and you also, on top of water, and I thought this was interesting too, because I think when people think about making these type of changes in their lives, that one of the biggest arguments, and I know you've heard this as well, Gail, is the expense. Oh, it's so expensive to eat this way. You address this in a practical way in the book too. How do you normally, people come to you and say, well, Gail, I really want to make these changes, but I can't afford to buy the organic. I can't afford to buy this or that. What do you normally tell them to counter that argument?
Well, the biggest thing is, if they really want to make a lifestyle change and really eat healthier, the first stuff that has to go is all of the junk food, okay, and a lot of the processed foods. You'd be surprised how much junk food, and then like going to McDonald's or going somewhere else, when you start eating out at all of these junk food places and you're buying junk food, so you're buying all of these cookies and pastries, those all add up. And I actually did a small study and watched my sister. So I added up all of this stuff, that some of it she throws out, some of it she eats, most of it she ate. But you look at all of this stuff and you add it up, and then you minus out all that food that you wouldn't eat if you were eating healthy. And also, like, processed foods, but your meat, if you're cutting back on meat, which is always a good thing, best to get rid of it, but cutting back on the meat will save money as well. But not eating all of this other junk food and buying all of this stuff out all the time instead of buying it and bringing it home, making it yourself, there's a huge waste of money. And, if you're going to spend a little extra money for some really good food, you don't have to really even go to Whole Foods. You can actually get really good organic food now at most of the supermarkets. But it's worth it for your health and your family's health to be a lot healthier, because you have to remember, when you're feeding them that stuff in the supermarket, all those veggies and stuff, you're feeding your family pesticides. I mean, I know people try to block this out of their mind, but that's what they're eating. It doesn't even, you don't want that. So it's good to spend a little extra money to do that. But I'm finding I'm not spending any more money now than I was before.
Yeah.
Because I'm not buying all the other stuff.
All the other stuff. And I think that's the thing that people need to keep in mind, that you're actually you are cutting back of other things, or just putting that money back in your pocket to be able to buy what is actually good for you and is going to do you the most good.
Exactly.
There are so many great tips in Gail's book. Again, the title is The Nuts and Sprouts of Healthy Eating, Simple Steps to Eating Healthy and Losing Weight for Good. She also makes a great statement about healing yourself through food. Never thought of this way, but if you read the book, you'll see exactly what Gail has to say about that. Gail, for our listeners who may have started off the year with such high hopes with a New Year's resolution of they were going to lose weight, they were going to get in shape, they were going to make these changes. Maybe they've fallen off. It's March. Maybe they've fallen off a little bit. What would you tell them about how they can start now by picking up this book, making the changes, how they can start living the life that's meant for them now?
Absolutely. And do try to pick it up. It's a great resource book, and it's all bulleted, so it's so easy. You can go from you can pick one of the categories and go to where you want. It's just a really good resource, and it's not a huge book, so it's easy to get through. But you can go to my website as well at healthyeatinghealthybody.com. I have a great blog on there. My book is on there. It's also on Amazon, Kindle, and Nook. So those are good places to also get the book. So those are some things you can do, and I also have other information, great information on my website.
On the website. She also has videos, as I mentioned earlier, on YouTube. You can find all of that by going to her website as well. Again, healthyeatinghealthybody.com. The title of the book is The Nuts and Sprouts of Healthy Eating, Simple Steps to Eating Healthy and Losing Weight for Good. Gail, thank you so much for coming on the program. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very much.